So, you're thinking about getting into World of Tanks, or maybe you're a returning player and just need a refresh. Either way, welcome back. World of Tanks has many mechanics, and to the starting player, it's not always obvious what's going on. This series aims at allowing you to have a better understanding and overall knowledge of the game. I'll be going through different topics in each video and explaining them in ways that is easy to understand. In this video, I'll be going through the settings within the game, as this is usually the first thing that people want to change. I'll be showing you how to declutter and make the most important information visible within the HUD, and also show you some quality of life changes. So without further ado, let's begin. Once you're in your garage, you can either press escape, or you can click the cog icon at the top left and click the settings from there. Here you're filled with loads of information that can seem quite daunting if you don't know what it does, but we're going to go through all of it now. Starting with the chat, censor offensive words in chat, swear words, other stuff like that. If you don't want that stuff, then click this and then it will display stars instead of the swear words. Hide spam, I'm pretty sure that doesn't count in game because I have this enabled and I still get spammed. Date and time in messages, this is for the DM system, it says what it does. Accept invitations for friends in garage, this is just so you can accept platoon invites and whatnot within the garage. Accept invitations to platoon in battle, this was introduced quite a while ago now, but to some people it might be new. If you're returning, for instance, now you can actually click into the when you're in game, click on the person's name and it will send them a platoon invite. And this is quite useful if, say, you have 3 people that have 3 kills, you could then all platoon together and get a Brothers in Arms medal at the end of the game. Accept friend requests. This isn't a, oh look, I've got a friend request, let's accept it automatically. This is just, do you want to allow people to send you friend requests and you'll see it and stuff like that. I've disabled it just because I don't really know, to be honest, but I'd have it disabled. Receive messages from only contact list. Now this is very useful if you kind of want to just stay private and not really keep getting messages from different people, because anyone can DM you without this ticked. Disable chat with allies. I would strongly advise against this, as you won't see anything that people say within the battle. And someone might call out, say, oh, Tiger 1's on 10 health, use HE or something like that. So it's quite useful. Receive clan notifications. I'm not in a clan. If you're in a clan, then I would advise ticking it. Apart from that, that's only for clan stuff. Random battle types. This, by default, you have to play the standard battle. And for these, this one's from tier 4 and this one's for tier 6 vehicles above that. So anything that's tier 4 or above, and for this one, anything that's tier 6 or above, sorry. This is just where both of you, both teams will want to capture 1 point, as well as assault is where one team is defending and one team is trying to attack. I disabled these as they can get quite stale, I feel, and especially assault, it can be really, really campy sometimes, and I just don't really like that. I prefer just to stay with random battles where you have one base one side, other base another side, and you got to try and kill everyone or cap their base. Grand battles is where I can't remember exactly what tier you have to be. I think you can now be tier 8 and tier 10. This is a 30v30 game mode. I don't like it that much because it's a lot going on, and they can sometimes last a lot longer than it really needs to be, and so that's why I kind of stick to standard battles. As for me, I like to just go into World of Tanks, play a few games, and not have to worry that it's going to be like, I don't know, it could be like another 5 or 10 minutes sometimes just for the grand battles because there's more tanks. So I like to turn that off, but each their own. If you want to keep them on, then go for it. Vehicle panel. This is within the garage, so if you click 1 level and apply that, you'll see down here that I now have only 1 level of my carousel. And if you click 2 levels, 2 levels. So that's pretty nice, especially if you have a lot of tanks, then 2 levels is quite good. 2 level vehicle panel. Now this is for only if you have 2 levels. You can click minimalistic, and they'll go all small, which kind of dulls it down to the 1 level width. So if you don't have a high density screen, let's say 1080p, you might want to do this, as you can fit more on your screen. But I like to just stick it on adaptive and leave it like that. Display stats upon hovering over a vehicle's slot in garage. This will display the mastery badge, if you've ever got a mastery badge in it, your win rate, and your gun barrel marks, your marks of excellence. So as you can see, I have got a mastery badge in my Lorraine. I've got 57% win rate, and I've got one gun barrel mark of excellence. Enable battle recordings. I'd advise doing this. It doesn't use any more resources, and you can then, if you have an amazing game, you can then look back at it, or even upload it to a replay site and send it to me, Yeah. Display mark of excellence, that's obviously the gun barrel marks. If I disable that, as you can see, no longer have any gun barrel marks. And if I enable that again, as you can see, little mark there. It's just to kind of show how well you do in the tank. Hide non-historical elements. This is actually non-historical camouflage that you can turn off. So if you, at the moment, you can purchase camouflage for gold within the game, and it can be like bright red and whatnot. And there's also some funky wargaming camos that went on in Wargaming Fest, like this one. And if you disable that, then within the battle you won't be able to see that. It will only be the historical camos. Display server selection upon game launch. This is when you obviously log into the game, and at the start screen where you have your login information, you can choose the server. You can also choose the server by going up here, again, either escape or the settings, and you can choose your server here, and it displays the ping for you, and also the number of people on the server at the moment. That is that side done. So now we're going to move over to this side for the battle interface. Show vehicle tier. Now, enable this if you are a new player, especially. I like to enable it just because it looks better. If you don't enable it, then you'll have no vehicle tiers on the actual matching list. So on the team list, either side of your screen when you're in the game, you won't have any tiers at all. So especially if you're a new player, enable this, because then you'll be able to decipher, what tier's that. They'll be in order of tier anyway, but sometimes you don't always know what tier's which. Minimap transparency, I just leave off. That's personal preference. Enable optics effects in sniper mode. I'll have a little thing on the screen again, just showing what that does, whether it's enabled and disabled. Show post-mortem mode. I don't like this. It turns your screen a little bit grey. Dynamic camera does look good in replays, but when you're playing, I would advise turning that off, because when you shoot, it can move your screen and stuff like that. Horizontal stabilization in sniper mode, I would advise everyone to tick. This actually affects when you move your hull in your tank. Bloom and your turret doesn't go massive and move off your screen. So your turret doesn't actually move with the tank. Your tank and turret are separate, so your turret, mouse, and your hull is your keyboard. It's very useful. Enable the 16 times and 25 times zoom. This is further zoom levels when you're in the sniper mode. Restrict toggling the sniper mode to the shift key. Pretty self-explanatory. You can't scroll out of the sniper mode anymore. Very useful, especially for me. I like to just, when I've done a shot, I like to just flick my scroll wheel back so that I can go back to the 2 times view, and then it won't bring me out the sniper mode. Enable server reticle. I wouldn't advise this. It can be a bit jolty and jittery, the reticle, if you enable this, although it does show you exactly where the crosshair is aiming on the server side, but usually it's not too different, so just leave that disabled. Show vehicle markers on the battle score panel. It just shows the team lineup, and if you disable it, then it doesn't show it at all. I like that because it shows the different vehicle tiers, and you can quickly see how many SPGs there are, how many light tanks, how many heavy tanks, without having to look through, say, the right-hand side panel to the player list, deciphering that. Display camera direction beam on minimap. This is kind of personal preference. I just leave it on. It just shows you where you're looking on the actual minimap. Display arc of fire for the SPGs on minimap. Again, I don't play SPGs. I just leave that on because I've never changed it. This will just display where you're actually looking on the minimap when you are in the SPG. Display notifications when causing damage. This is very useful because if you obviously hit someone and you damage them, it will then display it to you. Rather than you having to check in the bottom left hand corner or top right, wherever you put your damage panel, which I'll go to later, it will just display it, come up, how much damage you've done and whatnot. Enable expanded minimap features. I would advise this, yes, always on. This will show you where the enemies were last spotted on the minimap, and as well as the vehicle names, rather than you just seeing, oh look, there's a heavy tank over there, you would actually be able to see, oh look, there's so-and-so heavy tank over there. So it will actually display the vehicle name. Tips on the loading screen, whatever you want. I only have text. It no longer gives me any information that I don't already know for it. So you could show illustrated tips. You know, yeah, up to you. That's for both of them. View range indication on Minimap. This is very important. Without these, you won't get any lines on your Minimap to show the maximum possible view range, the maximum render range, as well as your view range. So what it does is you have your view range, which is dynamic. So it will always change depending on how much view range you have. You have a maximum view range, which is 445 meters. And then you would have a max render range, which is 500 meters. Really useful that you enable these, as without it, it's it's a massive quality of life improvement. It really is. Garage camera animation. Up to you. It just kind of spins around your garage. If I do that, then it will show you. Why has that changed? If I do that, then you'll see my garage actually move around in a bit. Graphics. Now this will obviously depend on different people, what rig you got, what graphics card, stuff like that. I play on 1440p. Obviously, try and play on your native resolution if you can. I know not everyone can because, you know, graphics cards and it might be a bit demanding. Refresh rate, maximum, always maximum. Colorblind mode. This is the one that you kind of might want to change. I have it enabled. I'm not colorblind, but I actually quite like the different colors that it actually gives. Instead of like this orangey sort of color when you do damage, it's now bright yellow and the enemies are blue instead of red. Personal preference, I also enable it so, you know, if anyone is colorblind that's watching, they could see. Field of view, I personally have it at 120. It's up to you. I wouldn't advise dynamic, as this can be a bit weird sometimes. So I'd stick to one of these and just kind of see how it is. Yeah, test a few out, see what you like. Vertical sync and triple buffering, personal preference. If you don't know what vertical sync is, it basically stops screen tearing, but also increases a little bit of input lag. If you've got a 144Hz monitor, you don't really have to worry about this. But if you have 60Hz, then maybe test it out. It depends. Over here, this is my graphics settings. Now, this is obviously going to be very much personal preference and what you can run. But what I will say is, I would try and always have object LOD on ultra, because that can kind of mess up further array objects and it can look a bit weird. Have that on ultra and then the rest are kind of like, you know, doesn't really matter. You can copy these if you want. I don't have grass in sniper mode because when I'm actually aiming in, I don't want to see grass everywhere. Same as the extra effects in sniper mode, and the same for the terrain tessellation in sniper mode. Just makes it a bit more cleaner, and motion blur. Yeah. Also, untick this if you can. This will make sure that it's at 100% render resolution all the time. So depending on what your screen resolution is, that's what it's going to be. If you drop this down, then if it's say 80%, as you can see, it might look a bit blurry now. I don't know whether it picks that up on camera. You will get a bit more FPS, but it does lower the actual resolution down without it showing there. Sound, completely personal preference. This, like the graphics, is up to you. You know, you find what you like. Maybe some people like having bleeding eardrums, so they stick it all the way up. But I like to stick it on 20, and then I turn the vehicle engines, because this is just the engine sounds, down to 50, and I don't have the music or anything on in battle, and use headphones. Voice chat I've disabled as well. I literally don't know anyone that uses this. I remember when it first came out and they first done this, and it sounded like you're at the bottom of a submarine. That was great. But yeah, controls, I leave everything default, and sensitivity is, you know, down to you. Reticle, this is what I have. I like to have kind of minimalistic as possible. So I use the diagonal, the aim point 1, the circle 1 with load indicator, and aim point 1 with armor penetration indicator. Now what this will do is, if you are looking at a tank and it's an enemy, it will display it red if you cannot pen it. It will display it green if you can pen it, and it will display it kind of an in-between color, like the orangey or sort of colour. If you might be able to pen it. It's quite useful to have that, especially when you're starting out. I will do a dedicated video to armour and, you know, that. But sniper is exactly the same. Copy these if you want. Marker, I have this as minimal as possible. Yes, again, I just have the vehicle model, the health indicator, HP left / total, and make sure the damage is received. Damage received is ticked, sorry. Alternative, I don't really bother apart from that and the player's name. This might be good. For example, say you're in a platoon and you say, okay, let's target, let's call it a tiger, for example. Let's target that tiger, and there's two of them next to each other, and you know, you don't know which one. You can just hold down Alt, the Alt key, and it will display this, and you say, okay, let's target killer, and then, you know, that's how that works. Same for this. And destroyed, I have nothing, literally nothing, because I don't want anything to be seen. Tank is knocked out, as they're not really even useful to see that, so what's the point in having it visible? Battle notifications, I like to go for advanced. If you have standard, you can't actually see how much damage is being dealt to you. As you can see, you've got a module damage here. This is a tracking shot by the T-57 Heavy. This is a shot blocked, so that will come up in a grey sort of colour. And this is damage received. This will be red or blue depending on the colourblind. Dynamic indicators, I wouldn't advise having, because it might make it a bit too small for some people to see. So for example, you might be shot at by like a, you know, a 90mm gun and it only does like 250 damage, and then it's tiny, and then you get shot at by a Jagdpanzer E100 and that thing does 1000 odd damage, but you blocked it, so it's bloody massive on your screen. I like to just keep them all the same size, and I can read them all as I need to. I'd advise copying these. Don't have to display the animation, it can just be straight away. Vehicle info is also useful, because this will show it regardless of if the actual tank is spotted or not. So you can, if you get shot at, you can be like, okay, there's a ISU 152 over there. Accept critical, I like it on all because it shows me everything. This, I just show everything on here. It's just the different damage types, and you know, if you track them, it will also show you your assistance damage and stuff like that. I like to turn all of this on. Log, this is important. By default, it's kind of all over the place. All of these, make sure you're ticked, and display always, because you want to see all of this, especially as if you're trying to do a mission, for example, or maybe you want to, you know, rank up your marks of excellence later in the game. Once you're established and you want to get a bit more damage done, you can see how much damage you've done in total. I would advise displaying always for that. All event types, battle performance is only, you know, what damage you've done. Damage received is obviously what you've taken. So if you do all event types and make sure the received damage at top, otherwise it's kind of like this and it looks a bit weird. So I like to have the received damage at the top of my screen and my damage done at the bottom. That way I can see quickly how much damage I've done on that last shot without it being, you know, spammed by if someone comes around the corner and shoots like 5 rounds into me and I don't even know how much damage I've done that last shot. That's quite important to me that I have them two separate. Map border, I have this. It's completely personal preference yet again. Whatever you want. Progress of personal missions. Yeah, if you want to see your personal missions. If you don't, tick that. Pretty simple. If you did enjoy this video, then make sure you leave a like and subscribe, as it really does help me out. Also, check out some other videos that might interest you. But for now, I'll see you in the next one.